Well. We are going to go right on and take a look at some of the dailies here today. We've got Ikechukwu Amechi, who is the publisher of the Nation newspaper. He's not there in Lagos, but he's here in Abuja. Yeah, they used to see you in Lagos, so seeing you here, they just wonder, oh dear.
Hi, Ayo. How are you? I've not potted. I'm still with you in Lagos.
So what you see is not what you get. So don't worry about that. Because he was actually wondering, wait a minute, is that Lagos or Abuja? Did I get it right?
No, I've not potted.
Okay, so we'll start with Vanguard newspaper this morning. 2023 poll. Over 600 cases in court against INEC. That's ascribed to Yakubu. You may rise above temptations. No, you must rise above temptations. CJN warns at inauguration of election tribunals judges, says he won't condone abuse of power. Well, we know that this is not the first time that we're getting this kind of warnings or cautioned from a CJN about the administration of justice or handling, particularly when it has to do with election matters by the judges. So, do you think this will make any difference?
Well, we'll wait and see, but my hunch is that it won't. Because like you said, this is not the first time. Even when he took his oath of office the other day, he did say the same thing. But the truth of the matter is that if there is any downside to what we practice here as democracy, it is this shift to the cause determining who wins election rather than the people. What happens at the polling booth is no longer the sole determinant of who wins election. In fact, some people deliberately wait to go to court and get their victory now from the cause.
Is that what is encouraging these cases that INEC says, over 600 of them in court against INEC itself?
Yes, because, you know, and the sad thing is that these 600 cases against INEC are pre-election matters, petitions already in court. So right from the primaries, the courts are determining who is the candidate of the political party rather than the party delegates. And it spills over to the election itself, and people go to court. And those who came forth in elections are pronounced as winners, and they are sitting pretty in offices today in some states of the Federation. And we move on. It is an aberration. It doesn't make sense that the courts are now determining a panel of 5 judges. None of them had the right to cast a ballot. Even on the election day, we now sit down and determine who wins election over and above the decision taken by the House 500,000 voters in a particular state.
These cases that are in court, I mean, to what extent can we blame the courts? Because how much of that has to do with the political parties themselves in terms of their internal democracy, and then INEC itself in terms of some of those double standard on the part of some of the commission, and that's why people also wonder. But because with the courts, if the cases are brought before them, they have to look at them.
Exactly. Everybody shares in the blame. The political parties. Because of lack of internal democracy in the political parties, we have this mess. And then INEC also has not played a very sterling role in the management of the electoral process. And the cause. Chamberlain, you can imagine that judges lobby to be appointed members of election tribunals.
Really?
Yes. So Why do they do that? Because there are cases that are so glaring. There are processes that are there. For instance, the Electoral Act is there. Who wins election is spelled out, how that process that comes about. If we go back to the primaries that I talked about, some people bought forms to run for the presidency. They lost the election. After primaries for senatorial seats and others have been held, and they came back and said that they won primaries for senatorial seats.
Well, they didn't say what they actually won, because so went as far as the courts, the parties declared them winners, so they didn't declare themselves winners.
That is what I'm saying, that the courts are declaring them. And I said, how? Contrary to the Electoral Act. So everybody shares in the blame. If the political parties have internal democracy, and we won't be having all these problems. We won't be having the problems of people going to court to get their victory from the courts rather than from the people.
All right, you also have this above this lead story. ASU half salary payments. Gbajabiamila sues for peace, assures Buhari will intervene soon. So that one features
you see, this ASU crisis is a shame. And you know, it beggars belief that after what we went through in the last 8 months, that we will still come back to this thing. I don't know what the labor minister means by saying that they should be paid the pro rata, at least for the month of October. This government, I'm sorry to say, is impervious to reasoning, to good sense. And they should consider the fate of Nigerian students and their parents who have been made to suffer.
Well, the speaker is he's weighing in on this, and also assuring them that the president will equally intervene. So everybody will just hope that that is all sorted. NPC begs Biafra agitators not to disrupt 2023 census in Southeast. That will be the last one we'll look at. But if in the event that well, assuming that happens, does that invalidate the census?
It won't. If you remember, the last census, that was 2016.
There's always controversy about the outcome, the final results of the census.
Yes, but Ralph Wazirike did the same thing with Masob and convinced Southeasterners that they were Biafrans and therefore should not take part in the census that is meant for Nigerians. We are still suffering the impact today. I think good sense should prevail. And if there's going to be a census, my own personal opinion is that the timing of the census is pretty bad. 2023, an election year, and all that. But if there is actually going to be a census in 2023, nobody should disrupt that in the Southeast.
All right, that is Vanguard newspaper this morning. Ayo.
The leadership newspaper is my first pick. Of course, that major headline on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper is also there right above the major story. 600 cases affecting 2023 preparations, and it cries out. But the lead story, as you can see, the die is cast in PDP. G5 governors launch campaign against Atiku. Interesting. I'm sure you have a thing or two to say about that. But look at the riders. Wike, Otom, Ikpazu, Ugwuanyi, Makinde talk tough. Say party not ready to rule Nigeria. Presidential candidates trade words over absence at debates and town hall meetings. Well, pretty much saying that there are two stories to comment on right there, Mr. Michi. But begin with the lead story. What is your take on this? It would seem like unification isn't happening. Or is it happening behind the scenes and Nigerians don't know or can't see it?
There is nothing happening behind the scenes in PDP. The truth of the matter is that PDP is irredeemably divided as they go into the 23 elections. I was discussing.
Can you hear me, Mr. Michi? Okay, well, I'm pretty sure that we're going to get back to that shortly. But right under the nameplate on the front page of the paper, hope rises for traders as Abuja Kaduna train service resumes this month. How much of a relief that is, it would be good to know. If it is just for traders as Abuja Kaduna train service resumes this month, there are questions as to whether or not the people are fully, completely satisfied and pacified with what is going on right there along that route. But then, and then have the needful been done in terms of security for the route, for the train, and all those things? Well, I guess we're going to have to check. It is a very, very difficult one for governments, given that, hey, at the end of the day, it would seem like security is one issue, and investments that have been made into this service another one altogether. But look right beside that major story, number of stories there, I'll just pick on this one. No room for recklessness. CGN warns election tribunals. Find the story on page 6 of the paper this morning. And right above the nameplate, organ harvesting, UK court moves Ekwuremado's trial to January 31. Getting really interesting, wouldn't you say? That's the leadership newspaper this morning. And the next one I'd like to look at very quickly, still talking about 2023, only this time different, is this Nigerian newspaper. And what do you have on its front page? We chatted about this yesterday, but that's what you have right there. NEMA raises fresh alarm. Another devastating flood looms in 2023. To be forewarned is to be forearmed, they say. And the lead story is, you'll find the story on pages 4 and 8 of this Nigerian newspaper this morning. As Niger Delta reps demand humanitarian minister's sack. Bayelsa flood affects 1.3 million persons, kill 96, says Diri. The details of that you'll find on pages 4 and 8, as I said earlier, and that's that one. Right under that major story, you see a picture of what has now become known as the G5. But there's a story right under it. PDP crisis, why I will never support Atiku by Autumn, names street after Wike where IU has residence. This is getting interesting, isn't it? The story is on page 12 of the paper This Nigeria this morning. But right beside that story, that picture, you see two stories. CGN swears in 307 election petitions, tribunal judges. The story is on page 4. El Rufai accuses NNPC of plunging states into financial distress. That is actually quite interesting. The story is on page 7. Raises question as to how much the states themselves generate in terms of IGR for themselves and a number of other things. But then look beside the nameplate. Not very cheery. Despite EFCC raids on BDC hubs, Naira falls to 885 Naira per dollar. That story is on page 15 of the paper this morning. Not very cheering, many will say, but hey, that's the reality that we find ourselves in. Nigerian News Direct has this one on its front page. FG to link 36 states with rail lines to reopen Kaduna Abuja rail line. The story is on page 4. Promises constant surveillance and monitoring to prevent attacks. Well, we spoke about that earlier. It is a promise. That's what the federal government is saying, promising surveillance and monitoring to prevent attacks. What's the plan? Nigerians would want to know so they can feel safer. But then look at the third rider. As Ministry of Transportation seeks FEC approval for executing Itakpe-Warri railway line. Find that story on the front page. But the headline on the front page, the story, you'll find on page 4 of the paper this morning. Picture story is there, but right under the picture, the major big picture there, PMB scorecard. APC has a lot to campaign with. The story is ascribed to the Minister of Information. Find the story on the inside pages of the paper this morning. So many other stories on the front page of the paper. Chamberlain.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize for that breaking transmission. We lost you for a bit, but let's get back to this. But incidentally, the New Telegraph also has that story that you highlighted just before we lost you, which is the PDP crisis. Atiku Ayub boycott Goba campaign flag off, which but some of the papers he actually looked at before you take a look at New Telegraph, flooding this Nigeria highlighted Nema saying there's more challenges coming. There'll be a lot more dangerous one in 2023. The governor of Bayelsa State is saying that the flood affected 1.3 million people, several houses, and then some persons, the minister resign or be fired. So all of that speaks to perhaps their dissatisfaction with the way we're all handling this. But at the moment, is there any solution in the way we're reacting towards all of that?
None that I see, Chamberlain. I must be very honest with you. There's none that I see. Of course, if you remember, about 2 weeks ago or so, the president said he considered a committee and gave the committee 3 months, 90 days, to come up with a report of how to handle this. In 3 months' time, you can imagine what that
how to handle the future flood. Maybe the one that's coming in 2023, who knows?
But the truth of the matter is that this is not the first time we're having this issue. Yes, this may be the worst, but we had another one that was as devastating as the one we have right now. So what was the government doing all those periods? Or did they not know that we may get to this stage, that the climate whatever problems that we have are not getting any better. Instead, they are getting worse. And therefore, all the issues that have to do with climate change, we continue to get worse. Other countries are planning. Other countries are doing. So what Nema is saying is giving that it is only going to get worse. But then, coming toward the Minister of
Humanitarian affairs?
Yes. I think what she said was rather tactless. You can't come and say that Bayelsa is not even amongst the first 10 most devastated this thing. What if?
Okay, sure. Even though they were reasoning from a stats, that they had their ways of measuring. So are you saying she shouldn't have said that? Or what?
What are the measures? Chamberlain, what are the measures? We see on television every day what has happened in Bayelsa State. It beggars belief that a minister will come and start giving those kind of, okay, what Why did she say that? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And you know, it is simply the politicization of...
So it's not the way the press highlighted it that is the challenge?
No.
You say it's the way she said it?
Exactly, because that was what she said. Did she say that the press now reported him wrongly? They reported what she said. And I am saying that what she said was tactless.
Okay. Well, take a look at this one then. New Telegraph, PDP crisis. Atiku Ayu boycotts Goba campaign flag off in Benue as G5 governors inaugurate Autumn's projects. Voting PDP in 2023 is life and death. And Rivers thugs attack Atiku's supporters, pasting posters. So these are telltale signs of what to expect, isn't it?
Unfortunately, PDP is just divided down the middle. I don't see any prospects whatsoever of reconciliation. I was not saying before we have the technical hitch that I was discussing with a chieftain of the PDP in Abuja yesterday. And my take is that if I were Alhaji Abubakar Atiku, I will move on. Whatever, I'll move on. But because Wike and the G5 governors are not prepared to back him, it's going to be a very, very big issue. If you remember, that was the same thing that happened in 2014.
But who do you think they will back then, if they don't back their party's presidential candidate?
I'm not too sure they have all made up their minds who to back or whether they are going to do that and block. I think the reason is that it is not Atiku. That they have seemed to have agreed. But if you watch the body language of somebody like Governor of Oyo State, Sheyi Makinde, I think he's tilting towards the APC presidential candidate. I may not be surprised if one or two of them tilt towards the Labour presidential candidate. But the bottom line is that they have made up their minds that it will never be Atiku.
Even though they also have huge interest in who becomes the state governors in their states, who are the senators, who are the members of the House of Reps, and who are the State House of Assembly members. So they've got interest in all those ones in the same PDP.
That's the irony. Makinde is running for a second term. Autumn is running for the Senate. Ibazo is also eyeing a senatorial seat. So,
and Rivers governor wants PDP to win the state.
And Rivers governor wants PDP to remain in power in the state. I think they are standing between the devil and the deep blue sea. How they are going to navigate it is a very tricky game that they are playing. How they are going to navigate it, we'll wait and see. In the next how many months, everything will be clearer. But don't forget that this same thing played out in 2015. PDP chieftains, particularly up north, said anybody but Jonathan. So for the presidency, they backed Buhari, but the governors and all that. But the flip side of that is that in most cases it does not work out. Because if you also remember what happened in 2003, when AD, in 2003, backed President Olusegun Obasanjo for a second term with the promise that when it comes to the gubernatorial election, then they will also come back. It was only Tinubu that survived it in Lagos because Tinubu did not go with that arrangement. Segun Osoba and others lost out. So the presidential election will be conducted first.
Is it a good idea to have that first? Some think that, why can't we have everything together?
Well,
Will it work?
Why won't it work? But then the issue ought to hold the governorship and state assembly elections first.
Alongside the presidential election, the senatorial election, House of Assembly elections, just have them all together.
If INEC decides that's what it wants to do. But of course, the scheduling of the elections is also politics, a very big politics.
Oh dear.
Because everybody wants to, if the presidential election is conducted, then people queue.
Okay. Well, I think we also need to highlight this. WHO predicts pandemic deadlier than COVID-19, tasks Nigeria on preparedness. NAMA cautions on more devastating flood in 2023. A Senate mulls placing agency under presidency. Nigeria, second country with unimmunized citizens, unimmunized children, ascribed to Gavi and UNICEF. So you have quite a lot there making the rounds. All right, so there you go. That wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi is the publisher of the Nation newspapers. Thank you for coming on, and good to see you in Abuja.
Always my pleasure, Chamberlain.
All right, well, back in a moment. Join us again.